Putin and the president, and you stole it.
That's true. All
right, we'll tell everybody
turn down a good dessert.
All right, welcome to Hannity. Tonight, we have confirmation right now tonight that America's top secret FISA court system was totally abused for political gain. Judges lied to repeatedly and on purpose by the top echelon in our FBI and others. The FBI has now released their 2016 foreign surveillance warrant against one-time Trump campaign associate Carter Page. These contents go to the root core of our constitutional republic. Now, we on this program were right for a year. The media has now missed the biggest political scandal in our history. We'll explain all of this. Just as we have been reporting, the bulk of the FISA warrant, we now know for sure, was based on the unverified, uncorroborated, phony, bought and paid for Russian lie dossier of Hillary Clinton. Clear proof your federal government has been using opposition research, the deep state, to spy on a political campaign to impact, steal a presidential election. This should rock the soul of every American in this country, regardless of political affiliation. Now, to your core, we're going to reveal the baseless, corrupt motivations that are behind all of this abuse. We're going to call out all of these high-ranking deep state officials. They literally weaponized surveillance. They saved one candidate from being indicted, and they turned their guns on another candidate, politically speaking. And this, of course, amid the abuse of the ongoing politicization of the intelligence gathering. Now the Trump administration rightly is looking to remove security clearances from former high-ranking officials. We're going to tell you who they are and why they should be removed, something the media won't tell you tonight. And we also have a message for Robert Mueller. Bob, pay very close attention tonight. We found Russia collusion. None of it involves Donald Trump. Buckle up, sit tight. This is an important hour when we start with our very important breaking news opening monologue. All right, this is sad news. Everything we have been telling you for months. We have been reporting for months that the media has ignored for over a year has been confirmed this weekend. I want you to pay very close attention. It gets somewhat complicated, but it's a sad chapter in American history. You have a Trump campaign associate. His name is Carter Page. He was spied on during the height of the 2016 election by Barack Hussein Obama's DOJ through the use of a FISA warrant, the hardest warrant to get. And tonight we know for sure, totally confirmed, that the justification for this warrant was a document. You've heard it before. The unverified, uncorroborated, phony dossier put together by a foreign national with funneled money through a law firm to an op research group paid for by Hillary Clinton and the DNC. And by the way, this was all full of Russian lies. The whole bunch of it. Russian lies. Every single thing that they said about Donald Trump was not true. Now, we told you about Perkins Coie, the law firm. We told you about Fusion GPS. We told you about the foreign national, Christopher Steele. They dug up dirt on Clinton's opponent with Russian lies. Let me repeat, Mr. Mueller, Russian lies to the American people to affect the outcome of a presidential election. Let me put it more simply. Obama's DOJ and FBI were spying on the campaign of an opposing party in a presidential election year, using op research that Hillary Clinton paid for. Deep state operatives tried to rig and steal a presidential election. This is what happens in banana republics. This is Venezuela. The type of propaganda would rival Pravda in the former Soviet Union. This should never happen in the United States of America, period. And the mainstream corrupt media in this country has been completely missing in action. Make no mistake, this phony, dirty Russian dossier wasn't just referenced in the newly released documents on late Saturday night. Instead, Steele's dossier was, in fact, the FISA application. All four of them. But still, look at your screen. See these names? James Comey, Sally Yates, Dana Puente, and Andrew McCabe, Rod Rosenstein, all signed off on this warrant and all three subsequent renewals. They repeatedly lied to FISA court judges 4 separate times. Rod Rosenstein lied. McCabe lied. Nothing new for him. And Yates and Comey and the rest of them all lied. And they all signed off on a warrant application based on a document that is so duplicitous, even Steele himself, in court proceedings in Great Britain, conceded that the dossier was not confirmed or verified. He referred to it as raw intelligence. And he said the chances of some of it even being true were 50-50. And Christopher Steele was ultimately fired as an FBI source for lying and leaking. And still, in the FISA warrants, after his firing, they claimed, 2 FISA judges, that Steele was credible. He was fired for lying and leaking. And meanwhile, James Comey admitted he knew the dossier was unverified and salacious. And let's not forget, fired FBI director actually denied. He told a lie to our own Brett Baer that the dossier was, in fact, playing a major role in the FISA application, the hardest warrant to ever get. They lied to the judges repeatedly. Take a look.
You called the dossier unverified, salacious. Why did you use that to the FISA court to ask for surveillance for Carter Page? Not only use it, but you led with it. A bulk of that FISA application deals with that dossier. Why?
Yeah, that's not my recollection, Brett. And I don't know that the FISA application has been released. My recollection was it was part of a broader mosaic of facts that were laid before the FISA judge to obtain a FISA warrant.
There was a lot more than the dossier in the FISA application?
My recollection was there was a significant amount of additional material about Page and why there was probable cause to believe he was an agent of a foreign power. And the dossier was part of that, but was not all of it or a critical part of it.
What he said was a lie. This lie was parroted again and again by Democrats. The biggest liar in the country, Adam Schiff. Let's look at him lying to you.
The information that was used in part in the FISA application came from a trusted source, Christopher Steele, someone who is a respected member of British intelligence. And it was part of a full package that was presented to the FISA court, and it would have been negligent, frankly, given what the FBI knew about Carter Page, the history that he had, the fact he'd been a target of Russian recruitment even prior to this, the fact that they went out and interviewed him in March, even before Christopher Steele produced any part of the so-called dossier, that they were acting in good faith.
No, Mr. Schiff, you knew, and we all now know, it was the bulk of the application. He's one of the biggest liars in the country with 500 TV appearances. Well, about that. Meanwhile, remember, it was the deputy AG, Rod Rosenstein, who was conflicted in so many different ways. He actually signed off on the last final FISA renewal against Carter Page, who had this to say: Rod, listen to your own words about the sanctity of getting a FISA warrant. What you said back in May. Apply these standards to yourself, knowing what we now know.
The way we operate in the Department of Justice, if we're going to accuse somebody of wrongdoing, we have to have admissible evidence and credible witnesses. We need to be prepared to prove our case in court. And we have to affix our signature to the charging document. That's something that not everybody appreciates. There's a lot of talk about FISA applications. And many people that I see talking about it seem not to recognize what a FISA application. A FISA application is actually a warrant, just like a search warrant. In order to get a FISA search warrant, you need an affidavit signed by a career federal law enforcement officer who swears that the information in the affidavit is true and correct to the best of his knowledge and belief. And that's the way we operate. And if it's wrong, sometimes it is, if you find out there's anything incorrect in there, that person is going to face consequences.
Are you going to face consequences? Jeff Sessions, where are you tonight? Your country needs you to do your job tonight. And by the way, is Christopher Steele, Rod, is he credible to you? And to the best of Rod's knowledge, the basis of the 2016 FISA warrants against a Trump campaign associate, we now know the following. It was unverified. It was uncorroborated, as Rod Rosenstein said it must be. It was untrue. It was a document full of Russia lies. And they all signed off on it. And by the way, in fact, everyone who signed off on this misled FISA court judges and propagated lies in order to knowingly spy on a campaign and rig a presidential election in their favor. And the media took this bait. They were fed by Christopher Steele at the behest of Fusion GPS, and they sent it out to the media. It is the biggest single scandal in American history, and your media is deaf, blind, and dumb, and overpaid and lazy. Which brings us to Carter Page. Now, tonight, besides and despite extensive surveillance from the federal government, why is it Page hasn't been charged with a crime? Has anyone asked that question? Despite Obama's DOJ alleging he might be a Russian agent, what they told the FISA courts, why is Carter Page a free man tonight? In fact, according to Page, and I interviewed him for an hour on radio today, he actually was debriefed by the CIA and the FBI after many of his visits to Russia, cooperating with them, helping his own government, he said. Here's what he said on my radio show.
It's funny. Not only did they lie, they have two main themes which are totally contradictory. They call me a quote unquote foreign agent, but then at the same time they say I'm a target of recruitment, right? So which one is it? I mean, there's so many inconsistencies, and it's just completely beyond comprehension.
Our own Greg Jarrett, whose reporting has been flawless in all of this, will join us in a minute, probably summed up this document best. And according to his legal analysis, here are the main takeaways from the FISA warrant. First, the warrant application was the dossier, like we've been saying, front and center, the bulk of information. That means Nunes was right, the Grassley-Graham memo was right. The Democrats lied. The FISA court was purposefully misled on a lot of fronts and not explicitly told the nature of this unverified dossier with Russian lies. There would have been no warrant without the dossier. Remember, even Andrew McCabe said that. James Comey lied about the dossier's role in this warrant. The FISA court never knew Hillary bought and paid for this. They purposely withheld that kind of important piece of information. And the FBI relied on news accounts and lied to judges, including what's called circular reporting from Yahoo News. They used the dossier as the basis for one of their reports. Steele lied, but was still, quote, credible by the FBI. Does that make sense? Page has never been indicted. The FBI never actually interviewed Page, although he said he was back in March to me. The dossier was unverified, and yet it was used to obtain warrants. How dare Rod Rosenstein and everybody else sign off on that? They're now violating, shredding our Constitution, violating our Fourth Amendment rights. And why is it all redacted? Let's give it to the American people. Trey Gowdy even said he's seen no collusion from this document up. And still tonight, we have even more questions than even earlier. This FISA application is heavily redacted. The American people deserve to see it. I am calling for all of this warrant to be unredacted. The president can do this. And according to my sources, if the final FISA warrant is released, Rod Rosenstein is finished as his role as deputy AG. But now, because of the blatant abuse of power that took place at the highest levels of your government, the Trump administration rightly tonight is taking important steps and calling for certain Obama-era officials to be stripped of their security clearances. This should have happened a long time ago, knowing what we now know. Take a look.
Not only is the president looking to take away Brennan's security clearance, he's also looking into the clearances of Comey, Clapper, Hayden, Rice, and McCabe. The president is exploring the mechanisms to remove security clearance because they've politicized and in some cases monetized their public service and security clearances. Making baseless accusations of improper contact with Russia or being influenced by Russia against the president is extremely inappropriate, and the fact that people with security clearances are making these baseless charges provides inappropriate legitimacy to accusations with zero evidence.
Well said, Sarah Sanders. Right on the money. Thank God. They all abuse their power, the power that we give them. None of them should have security clearances. It's all true. They fixed the investigation to help their favorite candidate, Hillary Clinton, the worst obstruction of justice case I've ever seen in my life. And in the case of Hillary, misled the American people. Literally, she violated the Espionage Act, mishandled, classified, top secret, special access programming information, and destroyed such 2 separate felonies, then rigged an investigation clearly into Donald Trump. Their security clearances and are now obviously a clear and present danger to this country. And meanwhile, the press is spinning in circles. But let us be clear tonight. All these people involved in the biggest political scandal of our lifetime, Robert Mueller, this is your collusion story. Robert Mueller, maybe you want to get your pit bull, Andrew Weissman, on this. Hillary Clinton, the DNC, and the paid-for Russian lies to rig an election and lie to the American people, all done at the highest levels of our government. You literally using a warrant process and lying to judges, and the bulk of the information judges are fed so that they can spy on an opposition party candidate associate is full of Russian lies. So maybe you'll have a little more time on your hands and go after, if I may, these lies that were bought and paid for by Hillary to Russia, all designed to propagandize the American people. Let me put it another way. Lie to the American people. Mr. Mueller, do your job tonight. If you care about truth, if you care about justice, if you care about the system of justice in this country being abused at this high level, if you care that somebody actually paid for Russian lies to misinform the American people, and that information was spread by some of the highest levels of our government, how do you justify Russian lies being used to get a warrant on an American citizen? It was never verified. It was never corroborated. It was never even looked at. It was just propagated. And these judges, when are we going to hear from them? I never met a judge in my life that likes to be lied to. Where I grew up, where my mom's a prison guard and my dad worked in family court probation, yes, sir. No, sir. Yes, ma'am. No, ma'am. Yes, Your Honor. No, Your Honor. May it please the court. May it please the court that these judges now be told that they've been lied to this extent by our own top officials in our government to steal an election. Here now, Fox News contributor, she deserves a Pulitzer in her work in all of this, Sarah Carter, author of this book, The Deep State, How an Army of Bureaucrats Protected Barack Obama and is working to destroy the Trump agenda. Fox News contributor Jason Chaffetz. Good to see you, sir, in studio.
Thanks for having me. Appreciate it.
Sarah, you've been ahead of the curve. We've been reporting all this. Now it's all been confirmed. Now we know the lies told. Now we know what they didn't tell the judges about who paid for this. Now we know that they used unverified information and they put their name to it. So where do we go from here?
This is one of the most dangerous moments in modern American history when you think about this, Sean, that the intelligence community was weaponized to unseat a duly elected president with the intention of impeaching him if he got elected or to skew the election so that Hillary Clinton could win. The only place to go from here, Sean, is that the president must declassify the 19 pages that are being requested by the House Intelligence Committee.
And what will happen
he received the letter in June.
The president does exactly what you're saying, and I agree with you. I know Greg Jarrett agrees. Do you agree, Jason?
Yeah, totally.
Okay, if he does that, what will he find? What will the American people see?
The American people will know the truth. The American people will see what happened, how this dossier was used beyond what we're seeing now, which was already extraordinary, how the Foreign Intelligence Surveillance Court was fooled, and the extent of which they abused the power.
Isn't it that the FISA court was lied to, purposely deceived?
Lied to. Absolutely lied to and deceived.
What would happen if I lied to the court? I'd be in handcuffs, perp walk, mugshotted, and see you later, send me a cake with a file.
We all would.
If I deleted emails, I deleted subpoena documents, my life is over. Why? Congressman, how did this happen in the United States? Or if there's anything I've got wrong, please correct the record.
No, I think your monologue is absolutely the best synopsis that we've heard to date. You do it night in, night out. It's exactly what's happening here.
But now it's different tonight.
It is different, and a couple things need to happen. Absolutely need to release that document in its totality. Rod Rosenstein should not be able to oversee this. He's involved and engaged in the corruption that's happening there. And you got to ask yourself, why is it that Director Comey and the others are pushing so hard to get the Democrats elected? It's because that will neuter what Trey Gowdy and Devin Nunes and
I can't figure Trey out. He's up and down like a yo-yo.
But if you want Devin Nunes to be able to continue to move forward on this, guys like John Ratcliffe to continue to go after it, if the Democrats get elected,
it's over.
It's over. They will close this down.
They will close this all down, and a chapter on American abuse of power will be eliminated.
That's why James Comey,
it just won't only be eliminated, Sean.
Is just outwardly advocating to elect Democrats.
Sarah.
Sean, it won't just be eliminated. The abuse of power will continue, and that is unspeakable. What could happen from here on out should frighten every American unless this is fixed. What needs to happen is the president needs to declassify these documents. The American people need to know the truth, and the FBI, the CIA, and our intelligence apparatus needs to be overhauled. They need to take a look at this. This needs to change, and this abuse of power needs to stop.
Yeah. Congressman?
I'd also get rid of the Attorney General. The Attorney General is there in name only. I like Jeff Sessions when he was the senator, but as the Attorney General, he is non-existent for many of these discussions. And until the president puts in an Attorney General who will actually do his job, I think the deep state is going to continue to move forward and work its will.
So, and if the Democrats, this is important, if they win this election, this all dies. They cover the whole thing up.
They kill it. Think about it. McCabe and these characters, Strzok, these were the people that were going to be running the FBI.
They all deserve their clearances taken away, right?
By default, everybody should have every one of those clearances gone.
Scary moment for our country. This is really scary. If we don't get this right, we are that banana republic. We are Venezuela. We are the former Soviet Union. Tonight, Greg Jarrett's book is finally out, and Newt Gingrich, and Tom Fenton, and Andrew McCarthy. As a special, important breaking news edition of Hannity continues. All right, you see this book? Here with more reaction to tonight's opening monologue. Look, I watched Greg Jarrett write this book, The Russia Hoax, the illicit scheme to clear Hillary Clinton and frame Donald Trump. It is now out in bookstores. I watched him write it word by word. It is meticulously footnoted, over 700, 1,000, something like that?
700 footnotes.
It is the definitive story with all the facts. And this weekend, everything in this book, because I read an early copy, is now completely verified with this.
The book tells the story not only of what happened over the last 2 years, but what is still going on. And the documents that came out over the weekend prove one of the main theses in the book, that the FISA court was lied to, they were deceived, evidence was hidden.
How do you lie to judges?
Well, you can't.
How do you delete emails, acid wash hard drives, bust up the... How does any of this happen in America?
You know, it's amazing. I look back at Comey's testimony, and one of the things that people don't seem to remember is Comey was asked very directly by Jason Chaffetz during congressional testimony, did Hillary Clinton give classified documents to people who did not have classification status? And he said yes. She should have been charged right then and there.
Did what she did worse than Christian Saucier in the 6 pictures?
Oh, yeah. I mean, you know,
so this is
I go through all of the people in this book who have been charged for doing exactly what Hillary Clinton did. And yet
she did worse.
Oh, yes, because the volume. In fact, Comey wrote the sheer volume indicates that she was grossly negligent. But then he had Strzok and Page expunge that statement.
Okay. How is it possible that this is the biggest story of corruption and abuse of power that I can think of in our history? And we have basically been a lone voice. And everything that we've been reporting on, that you have reported on, Sarah, I can't name all the names. There's too many people. But our core group of people is now been proven right. Yeah. How do you lie to a FISA judge repeatedly? How does Rod Rosenstein get to be the deputy AG and he signed off?
It's a fraud on the court. And in fact, you played the clip of Rosenstein saying that when you sign this, we take it very seriously. We're vouching for the truthfulness, the honesty, the authenticity of our documents. And yet we now know those documents were never verified. You know, and it would have been interesting if they had actually shown the FISA judges the dossier itself, like you and I. They would have looked at this thing. First, they would have laughed, and then they would have said, get out of my court with this garbage. It's nothing but rubbish. But they purposely withheld
the fact that it was bought and paid for by Hillary.
And in fact, on page 159 of my book, I recite the exact footnote number 8 from the warrant application, which is so cryptic you would have to be telepathic or clairvoyant to be able to figure out that it was funded by Hillary Clinton and came from a foreign national, an ex-spy, who used multiple hearsay Russian sources that some of whom may not even exist.
So they all signed off on this, but in an interrogatory, this is in your book also.
Yeah.
In a case in Great Britain under the threat of perjury charges, what did Christopher Steele say?
Well, he basically said that this is just, you know, kind of raw intelligence and not entirely reliable. I mean, it took me a while to dig that out because it's a foreign court. But you can get the interrogatory answers that he gave. And once you read those answers, you'll walk away and say, not even Christopher Steele believed his own phony dossier.
So you have a leaker, liar, fired by the FBI, but yet he's in the FISA warrant, which they say he's credible.
In the later applications, they say, well, we did determine that Steele, they don't use his name, but they refer to him as source number 1, that Steele may have misled us, but we believe that his information is credible.
On a scale of lying to a court, where does it go on the scale? And am I right that this was designed to steal a presidential election?
If 10 is a lie, this is about a 20. I mean, this is the most egregious
Where would
deception.
I be right now if I did this?
Well, you'd be behind bars without a toothbrush.
Could you get me out?
No, I couldn't get you out. I mean, this is an abuse of power by arrogant people. They subverted the rule of law. They tried to undo an election.
Wait a minute, but also we know that this whole phony, by the way, Robert Mueller, Russian dossier, Russian lies. The American people were purposely misled. This was spread as gospel truth.
It was. And so much of what Comey had to say, I mean, I invite people to go back and look at what Comey said originally. He said no reasonable prosecutor would ever bring such a case.
Oh, really?
I haven't yet to find a prosecutor who wouldn't have loved to bring this case. There was so much evidence against Clinton.
It's in bookstores everywhere. This is it. This is the book. Congratulations. Destined to be a #1 New York Times bestseller.
Thanks to you.
No, people need to read this book. It's all in here. All of it. Meticulously done. I watched you write it yourself, which was rare. Good job.
Thank you.
All right. Newt Gingrich is next. Stay with us.
When it's too cold for camping.
All right, following the White House's announcement today that President Trump was looking into revoking the security clearance for former Obama-era intelligence officials, including John Brennan, he's the worst of them, James Clapper, Susan Rice, Michael Hayden, the destroyed Trump media predictably, well, basically, if Trump breathes, they go into meltdown mode. Take a look.
Sarah Sanders there, let's just call it what it was. She really threw a grenade in there when it comes to this news that she's now saying the White House is now considering not only revoking the security clearance of the former CIA chief, John Brennan, but also that of Comey, Clapper, McCabe, and Rice.
There's really no way to look at this other than President Trump wants to punish his critics.
Well, Jake, there's no question about it. Wants to punish them and silence them as well, perhaps.
Truly extraordinary and unprecedented threat from the White House, but it doesn't seem grounded in reality.
This is a very dangerous day for American democracy. This is the move of an autocrat, not an American president.
We shouldn't minimize this. This is a huge deal. This is Nixonian. This is the president threatening to use his power, essentially, to punish his political enemies. There's no other way to look at it.
No, the other way is they abuse their power as it relates to, trying to influence the American electorate with Russian lies that Hillary paid for. He was the author of the New York Times bestseller, Trump's America, The Truth About Our Nation's Great Comeback. Fox News contributor Newt Gingrich, we're expecting GDP growth. Barclays today revised their prediction. I don't think it's going to get there, to 5.3% for the quarter. Anything above 4 would be a grand slam home run by any proportion. Let me get to the important issue here. I've never seen a group of people lie to courts like this, fix an investigation like this, that had turned on one presidential candidate like this and abused their power at such a level. Lying to FISA judges to spy on Americans. We don't have a constitution, sir, if this stands.
Well, no, we do have a constitution. We just have to fight to preserve it.
Well, that's shredding
Benjamin
it, isn't
Franklin
it?
said to the. Well, what Benjamin Franklin said to a woman right outside the Constitutional Convention when she said, "What have you achieved?" And he said, "A republic if you can keep it." We're in that kind of a cycle again. Look, if I have any complaint about what Sarah Sanders said today, that the president thinks he's going to do in terms of these people, is he's not going far enough. He's not being serious enough. I think we ought to have some kind of open reporting on every single person who lied to us about Benghazi. I think we ought to have a really serious look at all the different ways in which the establishment grew more corrupt, more dishonest, more willing to lie to the American people. And if I were going to fault the president, it wouldn't be for going too far. It would be for not methodically and systematically exposing to the American people, starting, frankly, with the FISA warrant. There's no excuse for that warrant being redacted anymore.
Mr. Speaker,
and he can, at a stroke of the pen,
they lied to FISA court judges 4 times. 4 times the bulk of their application was Hillary's bought and paid for Russian, if Robert Mueller's paying attention, lies.
Right.
How is everything so topsy-turvy in terms of the country, the narrative, Mueller, and the media?
Well, you in a sense, you just said it yourself. We know who these people are. The question is what we do about it. I mean, I have no doubt that the New York Times and the Washington Post and CBS News and all the other manifestations of the establishment are desperately seeking to prop up the corrupt system which fed them news stories, which took care of them, which made them feel like insiders. And I have no doubt that this is really an all-out fight between the old order, desperate in its dying phases, and the desire of the American people for honesty.
But what about...
But Sean, I think the real challenge, the challenge here is not them. I'm going to surprise you. The challenge is not them. We know who they are. The challenge is us. And the fact is, starting with the president, we haven't been tough enough, we haven't been direct enough, we haven't been focused enough. And I think if we were, this whole thing would collapse in a matter of weeks because it is so sick and the stench would be so great. And I just gave you 3 or 4 examples.
How about we start with the redactions? And here's the challenge.
Perfect.
We can start with the redactions. How does Rod Rosenstein be as conflicted as he is? And he signed the last warrant based on Russia lies. And he appointed Mueller. I mean, I would laugh if it wasn't so serious, because the American people were systematically lied to. Courts were systematically lied to. Our protections against unreasonable search and seizure were violated at the highest levels of our government. And I would argue our Constitution is meaningless unless it's fixed.
Sean, here's where you and I are in a different place today.
Help me.
And maybe it's in part because I have an opportunity to take a deep step back and to think about history and to try to get a feel for where we are. Where you and I are in a different place is simple. The number one test is not Rosenstein. We know who he is. It's not any of these guys. The number one test is tomorrow morning, President Trump should sign a note completely eliminating the redactions and release the paper. There is no reason for him to not just go ahead and do it, get it over with. And that begins exactly what you've suggested.
Let me take it a step further.
At other things, and
He should sign it, release the totally unredacted version, and all those documents that Congress has been beating their brains over. How about he has the authority to release all of it? How about we release it all? Let's be transparent.
I think that they should. The only limitation should be active threats to people who are helping the United States, and that should have to be proven. But otherwise, get it all out in the open.
Sources and methods protected.
One of the places, right, within that framework, dump it all out there. The only thing that is going to clean up Washington is the fresh air of accountability, transparency, and honesty. Nothing else is going to clean this place up. It is a snake pit, and the more we learn, the sicker we realize it is.
You are a great historian. You're a professor at heart. Nobody knows that about you as much as I do. I guess the question is, in history, we've had some very challenging times. Can you think of a bigger abuse of power in our history?
Look, I think the person whose situation is the most like President Trump's was Abraham Lincoln. Lincoln is fighting to preserve the Constitution. He's fighting to preserve the Union. And he's having to do a lot of different things that are very bold and in some cases very radical. And he's trying to do it in a way that he is deeply, bitterly opposed, not just by the slave-owning South, but also by a substantial number of Democrats in the North. And I think that Trump's in a very similar place. I gave you an example a few minutes ago that I think is so astonishing. You go back and look at Benghazi. We know, without any question, the President of the United States, Obama, lied. We know that Hillary Clinton lied. We know that Rice lied. We know that they knew they were lying, that they in fact had information from Tunisia, or rather from Libya, that said their version was totally false. And they deliberately and maliciously lied to the American people. That should all be released. We should be able to see who these people really are. And then you should say to yourself, so if that's all true, and if Clapper and Brennan and others were engaged in lying to the American people, why would they keep their secrecy? Why would they be allowed clearance? And I think that it's very important to get all this stuff out in the open.
All right, Mr. Speaker, very powerful. Thank you. When we come back, Tom Fitton, Andy McCarthy will get their important perspective. That's straight ahead.
Salon. John Brennan, and he will definitely be sought by the committees for an interview. This is an extremely disturbing thing to see both he and James Comey, supposedly impartial government officials carrying out their jobs in very important areas in intelligence gathering and law enforcement, express the kind of extreme bias that they've shown now, which I think reflects quite accurately on what they were doing back in 2016.
All right, Congressman Bob Goodlatte this weekend calling on the former CIA chief, John Brennan, to testify to Congress on his role in this Russia witch hunt hoax. Here with reaction, Judicial Watch President Tom Fitton, who deserves a big pat on the back tonight, former federal prosecutor Andy McCarthy. Let's go to that particular point and get your reaction, and more importantly, just get your general reaction to what we learned today. Well, look, or Saturday night, the Saturday night dump.
Right. You know, look, on the security clearances, I think anybody who abuses their security clearance, whether it's to politicize intelligence or to leak intelligence, if they find out that you did that, you should get your clearance yanked. I don't like seeing the debate about it get politicized.
It's too late. They politicized.
Well,
did Hillary? Let's go to the beginning. Did Hillary violate the Espionage Act?
I think she did. Yes.
Okay. When she deleted and bleach bit and beat up her devices, did that obstruction after it was subpoenaed?
Yeah, the documents were, the stuff was under congressional subpoena.
And did they not turn, top FBI officials turn on Trump in a way that is unprecedented and use their power against an opposition party candidate to stop him with an insurance policy?
I think they weaponized the intelligence and the law enforcement apparatus of the government throughout the Obama
Trump
administration, but they certainly did.
And did they lie to FISA court judges not once but 4 times?
Yeah, I mean, well, First of all, they didn't, with respect to the dossier, when they said it was verified.
Doesn't the law demand that?
Well, their own policies demand it. Their own policies
FBI
say that they're not supposed to give. Then, well, yes, the law demands that you provide accurate information to a court. It doesn't require that it be verified and corroborated, but their procedures
Rod
require
Rosenstein said that if not, there are going to be consequences. I played that tonight.
Well, let's see if there are.
I'm not holding my breath. Tom, go through the same list of questions in your mind. Start with Hillary, end up with lying to the FISA court judge.